Let me take you back for a moment. Imagine a nation rich in culture, history, and resources, yet shackled by the chains of foreign rule. For nearly 2 centuries, India was under colonial control. Not just its land, but its spirit, its economy, its voice. Decisions weren't made in New Delhi or Mumbai. They were made thousands of miles away in offices that never walked the streets of India, never heard its people cry for freedom, or saw their dreams burning in silence. But something powerful happened, a shift, an awakening. It didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen because someone gave permission. It happened because the people, millions of them, decided they were done being told what they could be. Done with limitations, done with control. It was messy, painful, and far from perfect, but it was real. That's how freedom starts, with a choice to no longer accept what is, and to begin creating what can be. Now here's what's even more incredible. Most people thought the story would end with independence in 1947, that India would finally be free and the rest would just fall into place. But that was just the beginning. True independence doesn't just mean flying your own flag. It means reclaiming your identity, your economy, your voice in the world. It means shifting from survival to influence. And that takes time, courage, and relentless commitment. India didn't rise overnight. It stumbled, struggled, fell more than once. There were internal challenges, poverty, division, corruption, and external pressures trying to shape the country's destiny again. But here's what's extraordinary. Through it all, India kept rising. Because when a nation is no longer controlled from the outside, it begins to look inward for strength. And when you look inward, you start realizing that the power was never out there to begin with. It was always within. What we're seeing today is a reflection of that deeper truth. India is no longer asking for a seat at the table, it's building its own. It's no longer waiting for validation, it's defining its own value. Think about it. A country that once had its natural wealth drained, its voice silenced, is now a voice that the world listens to. It stands tall, not with arrogance, but with certainty. That's the power of a people who remember where they came from, but aren't trapped by it. This isn't just about politics or economics, it's about identity. It's about a nation that said, we will never be controlled again, and backed it up with action, with growth, with vision. The very idea that someone else could control India now, that idea is outdated, it's irrelevant, because India is no longer just a country. It's a force, not of domination but of transformation, and that force isn't slowing down, it's gaining momentum. So when we talk about the control India anymore, let's be clear. We're not just talking about the past. We're talking about a mindset that has shifted forever. We're talking about a nation that has stepped into its power and isn't looking back. Let's talk about power. The kind that doesn't come from speeches or slogans, but from numbers, decisions, and direction. When a country controls its own economy, it controls its future. And let me tell you something. India is no longer a market to be exploited. It's a market shaping the world. There was a time when economic choices were made for India, not by it. Trade was restricted. Local industries were crushed. The people worked hard, but most of the profit didn't stay within their borders. That's what economic control looks like from the outside when you're used, not empowered. But that script is done. The old narrative doesn't apply anymore. What we're witnessing now is a country that has taken the reins of its economic destiny and said, we decide. No longer dependent, no longer reactive. India is proactive, it's bold, it's rewriting the rules of engagement on a global scale. You know how powerful that is. In less than a generation, India has gone from being one of the world's largest aid recipients to one of the world's fastest growing economies. That's not luck, that's leadership. That's millions of entrepreneurs, engineers, workers, farmers, women and men waking up every day with a fire to create, not just survive, but build. Build industries, build innovation, build wealth, not just for the few, but for the many. Take a look at what's happening in business and trade. This isn't a country begging for investment, it's attracting it. It's competing, negotiating, and making deals on its own terms. Global tech giants aren't just selling to India anymore. They're setting up shop in India. Why? Because this country is no longer just a buyer. It's a builder, a creator, a producer of value. Think about the Make in India movement. It's more than a campaign. It's a declaration. A message to the world we're not outsourcing our future. It's about self-reliance without isolation. India isn't closing its doors, it's opening them on its own terms. It's inviting collaboration, not dependence. That's a mature economy, that's ownership, but here's what makes it even more incredible. Economic strength isn't just measured by GDP, it's measured by resilience. And India has shown the world what real resilience looks like. During global downturns, during a pandemic, during geopolitical instability, India stood tall. Not without struggle, but without surrender. While others crumbled, India adapted, pivoted, and pushed forward. That's what real control looks like, not control over others, but control over your response. And let's not forget the financial revolution that's happening digitally. Millions are now part of the banking system who weren't before. Transactions are being made with a fingerprint or a click. Rural villages are getting access to markets like never before. Technology is leveling the playing field, and India isn't just using that technology, it's leading in it. You see, when a country gets serious about owning its economy, everything starts to change. Confidence builds, opportunities multiply. And suddenly the world starts watching not with pity, not with doubt, but with respect. So don't let anyone tell you India is still waiting for someone to hand it success. That time is long gone. The truth is, India is no longer under economic influence. It is becoming an economic influencer. It's shaping policies, setting trends, and proving that prosperity doesn't come from foreign control. It comes from inner strength, wise strategy, and an unshakable belief in what's possible. Let's be honest, real power isn't just about money or markets. It's about decisions. Who gets to say yes? Who gets to say no? Who sets the rules? That's political sovereignty. That's the ability to stand up in a world full of noise and say, we'll choose our path, thank you very much. And that, right there, is the India we're seeing today. There was a time when India was seen as a follower on the world stage, a nation that others tried to steer, whether it was through diplomacy, pressure, or promises. But not anymore. India doesn't ask which way the wind is blowing. It sets its own direction. It doesn't pick sides for validation. It stands where it believes is right. That's what we call strategic autonomy, not being pulled between the giants, but walking tall among them. India's foreign policy today is bold, balanced, and deeply intentional. It doesn't follow, it leads with clarity. Whether it's trade negotiations, climate summits, or military alliances, India is no longer showing up to play catch-up. It's there to shape outcomes. Look at the way it navigates its relationships with the world's superpowers. The West wants partnership. The East wants influence. And India wants peace, strength, and mutual respect. And it won't compromise its sovereignty to get there. This is a country that says, we'll partner with you, but we won't be pressured by you. That kind of posture comes from confidence, from knowing who you are. And India has paid a heavy price to earn that confidence, not just through diplomacy, but through decades of standing firm on the world stage, even when it wasn't popular or easy. Think about how India approaches conflict and security. It doesn't chase war, but it doesn't back down either. It believes in defense, not aggression, but make no mistake. That defense is strong, smart, and ready. Whether it's protecting its borders or asserting its interests in international waters, this nation has made it clear we will not be dictated to. And here's what's even more powerful: India doesn't just speak for itself anymore. It speaks for the global south, for developing nations, for voices that have long been ignored. It's become a bridge between worlds, a mediator where others draw lines. That's a rare kind of influence, not rooted in dominance, but in trust. Now, don't confuse that with neutrality. India isn't sitting on the fence, it's building the fence. It's setting boundaries, defining principles, and making sure its values are heard. That's why it's being invited to the big tables, G20, BRICS, Quad. Not as a token player, but as a serious, strategic force. And this isn't just about international politics. It's about how a nation leads itself too. Strong leadership at home, leadership that isn't afraid to make hard decisions, leadership that listens but doesn't cave under pressure. That's what creates a stable, respected country abroad. The world respects strength, but more than that, it respects consistency. India has been consistent, not perfect, but principled. And that's why the old tactics, pressure, persuasion, manipulation, they don't work anymore. You can't control what you no longer understand. And the world is starting to realize this is a different India. It doesn't fit in anyone else's mold. This nation is carving out its own space on its own terms and with its own voice. And when you control your voice, when you speak with clarity, certainty, and purpose, you no longer echo what others want to hear. You say what needs to be said. Because true sovereignty isn't about defiance, it's about direction, and India has chosen its direction forward, strong and unstoppable. Let's zoom out for a second. We've talked about political power, we've talked about economic strength. But there's something even deeper that shapes how a country is seen and how it sees itself. Its culture, its creativity, its innovation, it's the soul of a nation. And when that gets awakened, when a country not only remembers who it is, but starts sharing that identity with the world, it becomes unstoppable. That's exactly what's happening with India right now. For decades, Indian culture was treated as something exotic, something on the sidelines of global relevance. But today, it's center stage. Indian music, movies, literature, cuisine, festivals, they're not just being appreciated. They're being celebrated across continents. It's no longer a cultural export. It's a global wave. Bollywood isn't just entertaining the Indian diaspora anymore. It's shaping global storytelling. Yoga and Ayurveda aren't alternatives anymore. They're mainstream. Indian fashion, art, and philosophy, they're inspiring the world. That's soft power, that's influence. And it's a different kind of control, not the kind that forces, but the kind that draws people in. But this cultural resurgence isn't just about tradition. It's about the collision of ancient wisdom with modern genius, because while India is rooted in thousands of years of heritage, it's also leading the charge into the future. Let's talk about technology. Let's talk about innovation. This is the same country where a village child can scan a QR code to buy groceries and a 23-year-old can launch a tech startup that goes global in a year. That's not fiction. That's happening right now. And it's not just happening in one or two big cities. It's happening across the country. You've got people in remote towns building apps, creating solutions, and solving problems at scale. India has become one of the top startup ecosystems in the world, not just because of government policy, but because of mindset. People are waking up every day saying, we can build it, we can change it, we can make it better. That's what's extraordinary. That shift in identity from consumer to creator, from learner to innovator, from follower to trendsetter. India is no longer waiting for the world to give it ideas. It's building the next wave of ideas itself. In science, in space, in medicine, in AI. Remember when the world was shocked that India sent a mission to Mars at a fraction of the cost? That wasn't a fluke, that was a sign, a message that innovation isn't about throwing money at a problem. It's about throwing passion, intelligence, and willpower. This is a country that's mastering both the wisdom of the past and the tools of the future, and that fusion is explosive. It's magnetic. It's the kind of force you can't control, you can only witness, and the rest of the world, they're witnessing it, they're adjusting. Because when culture and technology combine, when tradition and disruption dance together, a new kind of leadership emerges. And it's not loud, it's not about conquest, it's quiet confidence, it's pride without arrogance. It's saying, we know who we are, we know what we offer, and we're not going to shrink to fit anyone else's story. That's why India is rising not just in rankings, but in respect. People used to look at India and see poverty. Now they see possibility. They used to see complexity. Now they see creativity. And the more India embraces its own story, the less it needs to fit into anyone else's. Because when a nation becomes both the keeper of its heritage and the architect of its future, it's not just changing its image, it's changing the world. If you really want to know where a country is heading, don't just look at its economy or its foreign policy. Look at its people. Look at its youth. Look at what the next generation is dreaming about, building, talking about. Because the future doesn't come from plans. It comes from people. And in India, that future is burning bright. Here's what's amazing. Over 65% of India's population is under the age of 35. That's not just a number. That's a tidal wave of energy, creativity, ambition, and hunger. You walk through the streets of Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, or even small town India, and you don't just feel life. You feel momentum. You feel this constant hum of what's next, what can we build, how do we grow. That's not accidental. That's a generation refusing to settle for limitations, and the game changer, technology. The digital revolution has not only connected India, it has awakened it. In a single decade, we've seen hundreds of millions come online. We're talking about villages that once had no bank, now sending digital payments. Families that used to wait in line for hours, now accessing services in seconds. Education, health, business, it's all being transformed because people finally have tools that let them dream bigger than their circumstances. This is no longer about the digital divide. It's about the digital drive. Kids who grew up in homes without running water are now learning code on a smartphone. Farmers are checking crop prices on apps. Grandparents are FaceTiming with their grandkids across continents. This isn't a luxury anymore, it's everyday life. It's empowering, and more importantly, it's equalizing. See, when opportunity spreads, when knowledge spreads, when access spreads, so does belief. And that's the real shift happening here. A belief that I can, a belief that we don't need to leave our country to make it big. We can build something right here that's powerful. Because once people believe in their own potential, they stop waiting for permission. They stop asking to be included. They start leading, and let's talk about startups for a second. This is one of the youngest and most active entrepreneurial ecosystems on the planet. Young Indians aren't just starting businesses. They're solving real-world problems, water scarcity, clean energy. Fintech, healthcare, they're not waiting for the government or foreign investors to fix everything. They're rolling up their sleeves and saying, let's figure this out, and they're doing it with urgency and boldness. That's how a nation rewrites its future from the inside out. What's even more exciting is that this youth, Tech-driven innovation isn't just happening in the big cities anymore. It's spreading, it's reaching rural communities, tribal areas, underserved populations, and as it does, it creates this ripple effect. One that says, if they can, I can too. You can't bottle that kind of energy, you can't control it. It's wildfire, and it's transforming India faster than any policy ever could. Education is shifting too. Learning is no longer about memorizing for exams. It's about building skills, thinking critically, collaborating, creating. There's a hunger for knowledge, yes, but also a hunger for meaning, a desire to do work that matters, to contribute, to make a dent in the universe. That's what we're seeing now. A generation that wants more than just a job, they want impact, and here's the key. This generation doesn't carry the same weight of the past. They respect history, but they're not stuck in it. They're not defined by colonial scars or global hierarchies. They've grown up in an India that's rising, that's proud, that's independent, and because of that, their eyes are fixed firmly on the horizon. This isn't just the next generation. This is the now generation, the builders, the believers, the doers. And they're not asking who controls India anymore. They're showing you with every click, every code, every conversation, every breakthrough. We do. Because when the youth of a nation stop waiting for the future and start creating it, that's when the world knows change isn't coming. It's already here. Let's bring this home by talking about something that too often gets overlooked in conversations about national power, and that's mindset. Because you can have all the resources in the world, all the technology, the youth, the culture, the economic strength. But if the mindset stays stuck, the momentum stalls. But when the mindset shifts, that's when the real revolution begins. And what we're seeing in India right now is exactly that. A mindset transformation. A quiet, powerful shift in how people think about themselves, their country, and their possibilities. It's not loud, but it's everywhere. It's in the way people speak about the future, not with hesitation, but with certainty. Not with dependency, but with determination. There's this deep, growing belief. We're not behind, we're just getting started. For too long, the Indian psyche carried the weight of being told what it could or couldn't be, colonial narratives, global comparisons, constant benchmarks that made progress feel like catch-up. But now, that energy is turning. The mindset has gone from surviving to thriving, from can we to watch us. You hear it in the confidence of students. You see it in the pride of workers. You feel it in the passion of entrepreneurs. There's a new internal dialogue happening. We belong at the table. We can lead. We can build something that matters not just for ourselves, but for the world. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's the power of belief finally catching up with ability. This isn't about nationalism. It's about self-worth. It's about knowing who you are without needing to prove it. There's nothing more dangerous to old systems of control than a population that knows its own value. Because once that switch flips, once a nation starts saying, we deserve better, and we're capable of creating it, everything changes. And you want to know something beautiful. That mindset isn't coming from the top down, it's rising from the ground up. It's the shop owner who reinvests in his community. It's the student who chooses to stay and teach instead of leaving for a higher paycheck. It's the woman in a rural town who starts a business and hires 5 others. That's how a nation changes, not with a giant leap, but with millions of small, courageous steps. It's a mindset that doesn't crumble in the face of challenge. It adapts, it learns, it grows. Whether it's a pandemic, a global crisis, or domestic disruption, this mindset says we bend, but we don't break. And every time India bounces back stronger, the mindset gets more resilient, more self-sustaining, more unshakable. There's also this growing hunger for excellence, not perfection, but progress. A mindset that says good enough isn't good enough anymore. Whether it's in sports, in science, in governance, or in service, there's a desire to raise the bar, to not just compete, but to lead with integrity, innovation, and impact. And when that mindset takes hold, when it spreads through every corner of a country, it becomes unstoppable. Because then the control no longer comes from outside forces. It's internal, it's owned, it's embodied in every citizen. And no foreign influence, no outdated narrative, no global expectation can shake that kind of inner power. See, real freedom isn't just political, it's psychological. It's the freedom to dream without limits, to act without apology, to rise without fear. And right now, India is stepping into that freedom not just as a nation, but as a movement. This isn't just a shift in thinking, it's a shift in identity. And once a people start to see themselves not as victims of history, but as authors of the future, they can't be controlled anymore. They can only be respected.